This is Antic, Atari 8-bit podcast.
You know, you map out, okay, we're going to start developing in September, and then maybe we could do a play test and beta and over here 2 years from now, it'll be fun. This is when it'll be fun. Well, you can't plan that.
I'm Kevin Savitz. This is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. Brad Fuller started at Atari as an audio engineer in the home computer division, where he composed music and sounds for Superman, Donkey Kong, E.T., Robotron, and other games. Then, in the coin-op division, he composed music and sounds for Marble Madness, Klax, Stun Runner, Rolling Thunder, Paperboy, Xybots, Blasteroids, 720 Degrees, and many other arcade games. This interview took place September 2nd, 2015. Tell me how you got started at Atari. How did you get your job at Atari?
I was working at a recording studio, Streeterville Recording Studios in Chicago. A friend of mine was hired at Atari before that. And they were looking for an audio engineer at home computer division. And he created the job description around my qualifications, and I applied.
Nice. So it sounds like you had significant background in audio before then.
I had I went to music school. I went to Indiana University School of Music. After I got out, I wrote jingles and did recording engineering work in Indianapolis, and then moved to Chicago and did some work there. Simultaneously, this same friend and I were involved in the Atari 800 group locally, and started to write assembler code, and thought it was a lot of fun. And so he thought it was a lot of fun, and he was hired on to Atari. And so with my background in audio engineering as far as recording and knowing assembler, 6502 assembler, yeah, that was my background.
Nice. What was your friend's name?
Greg Riker.
Okay. Yeah, what was the name of the Atari user group that you were in?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have some newsletters here that I could look it up. It was in Noblesville, Indiana, which is a suburb of. It's now a suburb. At that point, it was a small town north of Indianapolis. I'm from Indianapolis.
Nice. I might need to check and see if anyone has scanned those newsletters yet. If not, I might need to borrow them from you if that's possible to scan them. I have scanned so many thousands of pages of Atari ephemera, and newsletters are among my favorite.
I got quite a few things here that I've kept through the years, pretty much where I've been mentioned,
Sure.
in news items at Atari and etc.
Nice.
And all my T-shirts too. When you're on a coin-op game, at the end, the T-shirts are created and given to the team members. So I've kept all those. I thought that maybe at one point in my retirement, where I can't get any money, I'd put those on eBay and maybe I could make some money.
Nice. So you're dabbling, even before you were hired, you were dabbling around in assembly language. Do you remember any programs that you made, or working on what kind of games or utilities, or just anything?
Two short stories. I worked at a bank, Indiana National Bank, and they hired me to create a interface to their IBM 370 for home banking. This was, in the 70s, before there was really home banking, and before internet. Internet was around, but not as it is today.
Right.
And it was a 3270 emulator, I believe. I don't remember exactly. And so that was one application that ran on the Atari 800. And the other story is one of the applications for the appointment at HCD, Home Computer Division, was for me to create some sounds. And they wanted to talk to me and then said, okay, let's see you create some sounds. I just wrote some assembler and created some sounds, and they go, wow, that's great. Okay. You're hired.
Nice. That was the interview?
That was it. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so you're there. You just get hired, and you're in the home computer division. And what did they ask you to do?
Build the studio, which was generally buying a Fairlight. I don't know how much.
The synthesizer.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we had a Fairlight.
Nice.
And a mixing console and other recording stuff. That was one thing. The other thing was to create some sounds for products.
Nice. Now, I understand that the Fairlight was one of those things that generally you rented studio time to use. A company did not just buy a Fairlight because it was a really expensive gadget.
It was.
Atari, of course.
It was, but Atari, I put in the purchase order. You want what? Well, okay.
Nice. Did
Atari
you need
was
it?
rich in
Did you
cash.
need it or want it?
Yes. It was great to have. It was a lot of fun, and it included going down to their place down in West LA and having lessons, learn about it.
Sweet. All right, they want you to make sounds for programs. Do you remember what sounds and what programs?
Yeah, the only ones I can think of are Donkey Kong, Robotron. We did E.T. I did the sounds for E.T. for the Atari, not for the consumer division, where E.T. actually spoke, which I did not do. My friend Greg Riker actually, I think he was working on that before I got there. Don't really know, but I don't know if you played E.T. for the Atari.
It's been a while.
But it actually does say phone home, which was kind of cool at that time.
Yeah, sure. Nice.
Did Superman.
So, all right. So, I mean, explain to me what was involved in making a sound for a game. I mean, did somebody come to you and say, okay, we need the sound of, I don't know, Superman swooshing through the sky, and
Yeah.
you had to did you deliver
Yeah.
code? What did you?
It depended on the programmer. It could be just the code for the sound creation. We used an application that ran on the 800. It was written before I was there that talked to Pokey, that you could create, sound effects with it in real time. And I believe you could then save that and give it to the programmer. Other times it would be writing code. For instance, I wrote the code for the World English voice synthesizer in a product that never came out, I guess. But it was where you type in on the console World English, and it would speak to you. So that was written in 6502.
What do you mean World English?
It uses a certain. I'm gonna look it up here. I think it was called World English. Yeah. it uses perhaps a different spelling, so phonemes would work better.
I see.
And it would I mean, this is 1982. I got to think back. I don't have the code here, but I think it would recognize certain combinations of vowels, a vowel or a consonant, and understand and pass that along to the synthesizer, to speak.
And this product, I mean, you said it didn't come out, but what was it intended to be?
It was going to be in the next Atari home computer. Mm-hmm. I think that was the 1450 and the 1400.
Right. Okay. So this would be some sort of bundled software, so you could use the integrated. Speech.
Yeah, it was just built in.
Nice.
Built into the computer.
And you said you don't have any code, so I'm just gonna. Do you have any source code, any code from back in the day anymore?
Yeah, I think I still have RPM, which is someplace, which is what we used in CoinOp to generate sound. It's 6502 assembler.
All right, so you're humming along, and how many assignments would you get? I mean, I don't. Did it take a week to make a sound, or a day, or an hour? I mean,
it would depend on the sound. Superman, something like Superman, also required the theme,
Sure.
John Williams' theme. So you'd have to write some music for it. And you've got, so many voices that are available to you because you have one Poke chip.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So Donkey Kong was a copy, of course. So trying to reproduce those sounds was one of the challenges. Wasn't too hard, but I mean, it's something you had to do.
Right. Did you have the original source to refer to, or were you just listening to the?
Yeah, sure. Donkey Kong. We had you had the arcade game.
Right.
Or Superman. You had the movie.
Sure.
E.T. movie.
Did you also do Gremlins?
I don't remember doing Gremlins for HCD. I remember working on Gremlins on CoinOp. Mm-hmm. Kelly Turner was the programmer. He has since passed away. And I don't think it was ever released. Oh, yeah, it was released. Let me see, 1985. I see it on my list. So, yeah, that was for the CoinOp, not for HCD. Did they have Gremlins for HCD?
I believe so. My source who pointed me to you said that you worked on the Gremlins game on 8-bit. I understand you spent most of your time at Atari in CoinOp, so how and why did you transition?
HCD was going down the tubes. Mm-hmm. And I moved over to, I was doing games, so I moved over to CoinOp. And that's about it. Those that were doing games could be moved over there. Right. And then the rest either left or moved over to Tramiel's organization.
Right. Right. So you moved over to games, and I would guess July 1984.
Yeah, something like that. Doing Marble Madness in '84, so it would have been. That's when it was released, but it didn't. I don't know how long it took to develop. So I probably went over in '83 or early '84 or something. I don't know.
Okay. So yeah, I'm looking at the list of the arcade games you did, and I mean they are games that just had phenomenal sound. I mean Marble Madness and Klax and
Klax.
Stun Runner and Road Blasters, and I mean every one of these games I have like an auditory memory that goes with Rolling Thunder, which is one of my all-time favorites. So I don't know. Tell me a story about making sound for the arcade games. How was it different from doing it for the home computers?
Not a lot. As far as in the beginning, the boards in arcade, CoinOp at that time was they used quad pokey, which are basically 4 pokey dies on one chip. Mm-hmm. So you had 16 channels, not just the 4. Mm-hmm. It was still 6502. Some of them were 6809. In the very beginning, 6502 was shared with the rest of the game, and then that kind of separated out. So creating the sounds for Pokey, whereas we used the same application that ran on an 800 to create the sounds. But when the Yamaha 2151 came about, that was the FM synthesis that came out with, along with Marble Madness and Paperboy. That was a different story. We had to create our own tools to create. I think they had a product on their. There was a product that they had for developing sounds, instruments, I believe. It might have, don't know what it ran on. Maybe somebody out there could tell me, and so I could remember that. But you created the instruments, and then we always wrote in text the music or sound effects. So that text was written by Rusty Daw, and then later improved by Rusty and Dennis Harper and Peter Lipson. But it was called RPM, and it drove Pokey. But then when we put other devices on, like the 2151, which is the Yamaha FM chip, the 5220, which is the LPC TI voice synthesizer chip, those all were driven by, the RPM. So we wrote in text, not unlike Music 11. If people know Music 11, it's just a textual representation of the music. But the advantage is that you're completely free of linearity. You can write loops and branches and conditional branches and anything you would like for every channel. So if you wanted to, you could loop continuously, or you could branch over on some condition that maybe the player reached a certain point or did something different or pushed a button or moved the joystick to the left, or something happened in the game and you could branch to another part of the music. So I don't think that answered your question,
no, it's great. Sounds like a useful tool.
Extremely.
Yeah. So, okay, if you were given a game assignment, was it just like, okay, we're Rolling Thunder, we're doing this spy game, compose something, or how much direction did you have?
It depended on.
It wasn't something like Superman where there was already a theme,
Yeah, it depended on the team, but usually a team consists of, and it depended upon the time. In the very beginning, you had an engineer, and to make a sound, they did things like turn a diode around and drive it backwards, and you get, and that's and connect it to a speaker. Put it on an amp, put it in, connect it to a speaker, and you get an explosion. Before microprocessors. Then microprocessors came along, and you still had an engineer. But as it got more, as the business got more mature, you added more and more team members. So you'd have maybe an audio guy or two audio guys on the team, an engineer or two, programmers, and animators, kind of like you have today. But before that, you might have had just maybe 5 people on the team: a programmer, hardware engineer, a technician who made sure everything was working and drug things to the field tests, and you have an audio guy and maybe an animator, an artist. So dependent upon the type of product and the team, it could be up to the composer, the audio guy or girl, or it could be someone that actually asks, gee, I really like this type of music, could you put that in? So it depends.
Okay. So how long were you there doing arcade games?
I was there until 96.
And what changed?
In '96, I left in December '96. In January, Midway purchased the Atari.
Mm-hmm.
So things changed at that point.
Yeah. So what did you do at that point?
At that point, I went on business of my own and developed audio for other products. Primarily, I did simulators. In '96, I did Silicon Motor Speedway, which was LBE, a large NASCAR simulator that you could have 12 cars connected to each other. People sit in the cars, and they move around. After that, I did quite a few educational games for Leapfrog, and then my last work has been with another driving simulator that is a serious driving simulator for brain-injured soldiers. It's a DARPA DoD grant that they believe that when soldiers were coming back from Iraq, that one of the best ways of helping them get back into society and things that had traumatic brain injury, people that had TBI or PTSD, was to get back in front of a steering wheel and learn how to drive, since driving is very complex activity. So they had a grant, and I was part of the team that created that driving simulator. I was primarily doing audio and writing code.
Mm-hmm.
So now you know my history.
Now I do. What haven't I asked you about your time at Atari that I should have?
Let's see. Well, Atari was a fun place to work and an aggravating place to work. And I think probably it would be said of any place that people work where you're trying to push the envelope. We have people that want to, in management, they want to push the envelope, but they don't want to spend any money. Mm-hmm. Or they want to push the envelope, but they want to play it safe. And for games, you can't do that. It would be great if you could have a project manager that you map out, well, okay, we're going to start developing in September, and here a half a year later, maybe we'll see something in alpha, and then maybe we could do a play test and beta, and over here 2 years from now, it'll be fun. This is when it'll be fun. Well, you can't plan that. Mm-hmm. You just gotta go with it, and Atari's pretty good about that. They always had 10 teams creating games, and most of them were thrown away because they didn't make any money. And so if they had a hit out of 10, that's fantastic. If they could sell a couple, that'd be great. So it's somewhat risky. I was going to say highly risky, but it's somewhat risky for what you put in. So I think at the end, people were trying to cut corners as far as the development, and that's basically hardware development. Mm-hmm. And you just can't, in my personal opinion, you cannot do that. Coin-operated games, arcades, run on something that's novel. When you yourself walk into an arcade and you got a quarter at that time, you look around for something that's cool looking and which sounds cool and has interesting controls. That's novelty. And commoditizing an arcade, just that's the death of the arcade,
Right.
and that's what we have. We have it now, PS4. That's a commoditization, right?
Right.
I don't know how we got on that, but that's one of the issues with, you know, doing creative things. Probably the same with movies,
Yeah.
where you can't really change projectors like you can arcade games in a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
So that technology turns slowly, but so you put all your energy into special effects. You know, you put the novelty into plot, into.
What during your time there were you particularly proud of? Any particular game or sound or line of code that you're just like, damn, that's awesome?
Very many. But one time we were creating. So Atari, when I got there, all games were on one or several boards, right there. So there's and ROMs, a lot of ROMs, got a microprocessor, and then a lot of supporting chips, and they were either a board or a stack of boards or whatever. What I wanted to do was, this is a two-parter. What I wanted to do was pull audio off of that, so we were not married to the technology development of an arcade game, but we could develop the audio technology separately. That was a headache, just to get them to understand that. And then, but what we finally did. So we came out with what was called the standalone audio board, SA1, and we put, I think, a 5220, a 2151, a Pokey on it or something. And then we came out with a SA2, and basically you could develop, the cool thing about it is that now the audio group, and there were 12 of us I believe 12 at the peak, could develop audio separately from the hardware, because you were always waiting for the hardware.
Right.
You know, can I get some hardware? Or can I listen to my sounds? You walk into the lab. I gave you some sounds. Can I listen to it? No, get away from me. So we could do it in our own lab. So we have our own standalone board just to write the tools, and I wrote the tools to connect to SA boards with our development systems. So now it's independent. So that's one thing that I think was really good. Pat McCarthy was instrumental in that, being able to create the SA boards. And then Chuck Poplinski was hired, and he was hired to create a new synthesizer board. And I wrote the operating system for it. Now, the answer to your question of was there anything that was interesting or that I could point to is work with Chuck, and that is building what we call the Cage board, the configurable audio generation engine. But John Cage, the composer, had just died at that time, so let's call it the Cage board in honor of John Cage. He created it was built on a TI DSP. He created the synthesizer part. That created, the sounds. I created the operating system, and we put RPM on it. I put RPM on it. It's written in C because I changed it. I created it in C from assembler. And I laid out the plan of how we're going to talk to each other. How does the operating system talk to the synthesizer part? And we said, good, that's the way it is. Okay, Chuck, go do it. I'll go do my part. 4 or 5 months later, we got together, completely independently producing. Of course, we talked, but independently, and we put it together. We compiled it together and said, well, good luck. It's not going to work because there's no way it's going to work. How many times does that happen? Well, it worked. It actually played music.
Nice.
Which we were dumbfounded that, wow, it works. Wow, it works. So that was great. And Chuck's great engineer. So all the people I'm most proud of, I would say the audio group would be the most proud of. Jeannie Parson, Don. I'm going to forget people, but Jeannie Parson, Don Deeknight, John Paul, Chuck Poplinski. It goes, there are several people that have come and gone in the audio group. Gunnar Madsen, Richard Marriott, great composers and really good audio people and technicians and engineers. So I think the audio group is the most thing I'm proud of.
If you could send a message to the people who played your games back in the day, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
Send a message. Well, we did it with a lot of fun. We created it with a lot of fun. Even though at times Atari management, hey, where are you? I do that. Atari was a fun place to work. It was an incredibly creative place to work, very fun. And I think and I hope that that fun got through the game and through the audio, through the animation to all the players. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Think I have what I need? Thank you very much.
Oh, sure. That's it?
That's it. Unless there's something else I left out.
I don't know. There's probably plenty. I don't know. I'm old, so it takes a while for me to remember back then. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but
No, but it was. I get that a lot. I've done a lot of these interviews, and people are just like, it was 30 years ago. But then once you get them started.
Right. Shut up. We got enough.
Right.
I can't think of anything else. I don't know. There's some other people that have interviewed me or textually. I just did one for some Japanese. I did two for some Japanese periodical. So I probably told them a lot of things different than I told you. So if you read Japanese, then you could probably
that
get
won't be
that
a problem.
period.
I don't read Japanese. So. Awesome. Well, thank
But
you
it's
so
probably
much.
good enough.
Yeah, no, it's great. I appreciate
Okay.
it. I'll let you know when this is published.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
If you enjoyed these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.